Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're just going to allow a few minutes so everyone can enter the session. So we'll just leave it for a couple minutes. Hopefully everyone can see the screen share okay. And of course, a big welcome to everyone for joining the session today. Really looking forward to a really interactive event and some exciting participation. So once again, please just allow us just a minute or two whilst we get everyone into the meeting from the lobby. Beginning to see some familiar faces and familiar names in the meeting. So thanks to everyone for coming back and joining us for this event. Really looking forward to everyone getting involved. In just a few moments, we'll be beginning the webinar. Okay, so I think this is now a good chance to start the webinar. So firstly, thank you everyone so much for joining this session with us this afternoon. We're really excited to have you on board with us. We've got a fantastic panel of speakers for you today, and we are really looking forward to taking you through this webinar, which is being hosted by the Dubai Chamber Sustainability Network Supply Chain Task Force, and it's being hosted in conjunction with WEConnect International. Really excited to have those guys on board with us for today's event. And we are focusing on the topic of identifying, supporting, and developing diverse supply chains internationally and regionally. So here's the agenda for today. I'll just be spending a short 10 minutes at the beginning just for the welcome and introduction. We'll then be passing over to our keynote speaker for today, and that's Michael Tobolewski, who's the Vice President for Member Development at WEConnect International. We will then be having a presentation from Rohit Batra, the Senior Director for MEA Purchases at Procter & Gamble. And then after that, we'll be heading over to the panel discussion, where Michael will be moderating a panel including Diana Daikali, who's the MEA Strategic Sourcing Lead for M&S Commercial AMEA at Mars. And also we'll be joined by Peter Zirk, the Supplier Inclusion and Diversity Program Lead at Accenture. And Rohit will be rejoining us as well for the panel too. And we expect the session to be concluded by around 4:30 p.m. Okay, so a bit of housekeeping before we get underway today. So we kindly request that when you're not speaking, if you can please keep your camera off and your microphone on mute. Otherwise, there'll be disturbances in the background for the presenters. You can submit your questions or comment at any time. You can click the chat box in the MS Teams panel, and you can submit your questions that way. We will be fielding questions from attendees after the panel session. So every question that gets logged in the chat box, we'll try our very best to field those questions for you at the end of the session. Please just make it very clear though, when you do submit your question, if you can just say who you are, what company you're from, and who specifically you'd like to ask your question to. After this event, you will be sent a feedback form. This is so we can gather customer satisfaction for all of our events, and we really ask you to respond to that feedback questionnaire so we can really use it to help further improve future events. And also, we'll be sending you an additional survey, which is being conducted by WEConnect International, and that is to understand and gather a baseline for supplier diversity and inclusion in the region. So we'd invite you to participate in that survey as well in order to establish this baseline. Okay, so today's event, the objectives for today are for you as the attendees to gain more knowledge on what diverse supply chains are in the international and regional context, the key drivers and barriers for developing diverse supply chains, the business case and ways to develop supply chain diversity for your company, the various strategies that companies can take to increase supplier diversity, and crucially, the key steps that companies can take to benefit from supply chain diversity and how they can learn more. So just for those of you who are new to either the network or the Centre for Responsible Business, or even familiar faces, just very briefly, we are the Dubai Chamber of Commerce Centre for Responsible Business, and we are here to advocate on behalf of corporate social responsibility and sustainability for the business community here in Dubai and the wider region as well. We do that through the delivery of a number of programs, and you can see here the programs we have presented. I'm not actually going to go into them in any particular detail because that's not the purpose of today's event. If you want to know more about them, please do get in touch with me after the event, and of course we'd be delighted to explain more about them. But what I really wanted to show you here is for maybe those of you that are really familiar with our programs and the Centre for Responsible Business, and you may also be aware that the Dubai Chambers has undergone a huge restructuring over the last few months and rebranding exercise as well. So what we really wanted to show here is we have a completely new look and feel about the whole Dubai Chambers and the Dubai Chambers of Commerce, and with that as well as our department as the Centre for Responsible Business. So yeah, I'd like to formally introduce you to our new branding, which we're really excited about. Okay, so I mentioned we have programs. Today's event sits under the Sustainability Network program, which has a number of different task forces, and within those task forces, we have one on sustainable supply chain, which is the task force hosting today's event. And the purpose of the task force is to bring together different stakeholders of the supply chain. It is also to understand the complexity and the impact of companies' supply chain in Dubai and further afield. We also aim to provide a platform to share and learn, and also to advocate for advancing policy and regulatory framework. Each year, we set a number of objectives and deliverables for each task force, and here are the objectives and deliverables for the supply chain task force this year. The first one was to look into selecting sustainable suppliers, and the deliverable for that was hosting of an event with the aim of sharing best practices on utilizing sustainability criteria to identify and select sustainable suppliers. We hosted that event on the 21st of April. The second objective, which is the reason why we're hosting this event, is to look into identifying and supporting diverse supply chains. The deliverable is to host an event with the aim of identifying what supply chain diversity is and how it can be achieved. And of course, that's being delivered today. And we're really, really excited to delve into this with our expert panel of speakers that we have lined up for you today. Okay, just to quickly touch base, if you joined our previous event back in April, if you didn't, it was another very successful event with some very high profile speakers looking into the topic of best practices for identifying and selecting sustainable suppliers. We're very pleased that we had 46 attendees at this event, representing a total of 29 companies. So if you attended that event, thank you for joining. Okay, now on to the topic for today, which is identifying and supporting diverse supply chains. So I guess the question you might be asking is why? Why is it an important topic? And so I just wanted to briefly pull upon this article from Forbes, which explains that the benefits to companies with diverse supply chains include increased innovation, competitive advantage, access to new markets, and also enhanced socio-economic impact. And what we know from the sustainability perspective is that these benefits to companies also benefit the sustainability of those companies and the wider sustainability of the business environment too. So without further ado, I would like to now hand you over to our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Michael Tobolski, the Vice President for Member Development at WEConnect International. And I'd just like to share with you a brief bio. So Michael is the Vice President for Member Development at WEConnect International, where his focus is on member development and engagement. Michael has previously worked as a Senior Director of Supplier Diversity at Marriott International, where he developed Marriott's formal supplier program and began their global supplier diversity journey. He has also held positions with Marriott as Hotel Controller, Director of Purchasing, and Food and Beverage Director. Michael also worked at Walt Disney World, where he oversaw food and beverage operations in several of the resort hotels. As an entrepreneur, Michael has also co-founded and operated several businesses, including a 3-restaurant company in Northern Virginia. So without further ado, Michael, the platform is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. And hello, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. So we're going to talk specifically here about the benefits of diverse supply chains. And before we get started in this, I want to give you just a brief overview of our organization and why we do what we do. Based on our research, today less than 1% of large corporate and government spend today worldwide goes to women-owned businesses, even though they make up about 1/3 of all privately owned businesses. So this is really a key factor, and we believe part of this has to do with bias, which we'll talk about a little later. But it's been shown that businesses with at least one female founder perform 63% better than companies with only male founders. And if women and men participate equally in the global economy, GDP could rise by 28 trillion. So it's significant. So our organization is founded back about 13 years ago. Our goal is really to support our corporate members with supplier diversity and inclusion development and implementation, and to empower women through gender inclusive sourcing efforts and opportunities. When we talk about diverse suppliers, and specifically in our case, it's about women-owned businesses, they have to be competitive in quality, service, and price. Nobody's going to buy from a supplier just because they happen to be diverse. But it's been shown when women businesses are successful in developing economies, they tend to give back more to their communities. So there's an impact factor that I think Charles touched on earlier. So we're the only global NGO working with member buyers around the world to identify, register, train, and certify these women-owned businesses. And we have currently a database of about 15,000 women businesses from over 135 countries. So as I mentioned, we partner with our members, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. We currently have about 165, but we also include in that the World Bank, the United Nations, the IMF, and the IDB have also joined us to help grow their efforts around inclusive sourcing. So we help our members create and implement the strategies. We work in sharing best practices. We connect the buyers with the sellers. We do this through several means. We have our database, which was funded by one organization here and developed by SAP, that we can search by product and service from any country in the world where we have women businesses registered. We do conferences where we do matchmaking events. We do posting business opportunities in our network so that we can let the women businesses know their opportunities. And so there's also these meet the member events where we do these specific one-on-one sessions for our buyers. We also work to build the capacity of the women-owned businesses to get them ready. We focus on B2B, not startups, but businesses that are already doing business with businesses, other businesses that can grow to that next level. And then we connect the women businesses with each other. And we did a study a few months ago that somebody asked about the top 20 women businesses and their size. And it was shown that the smallest business out of that top 20 was 75 million US in revenue, and the largest was 2 billion. So they are not all small and medium-sized businesses, but there are many that are, but just to show that they can do business with one another as well. And this logo on the right-hand side was developed for us and our US partner so that women businesses can put this on their products. And Walmart in the US did a study a few years ago that showed that the women-owned products sold at a faster rate than the non-women-owned products. So there's certainly a desire for that and an appetite. So here's a list of our current corporate members. We have some of the largest corporations in the world already working with us. When we started off in 2009, it was only 15 members, and so we've grown significantly. But we have companies like Unilever, BASF, Google, Facebook, ExxonMobil, and these are all companies that are committed to buy from women or make sure that they're at least included in their process in terms of procurement. We have a process in place with many of our members that any time an RFP goes out anywhere in the world, that it has to include at least one diverse supplier in their process, or they have to sign off at their headquarters. And just to give you a sense of scope, our members reported spending over 4 billion US last year with women-owned businesses outside of the US. So that may sound like it's a significant number, but it's still less than 1% of their total spend. So there still remains a huge opportunity to grow that. So supplier diversity and inclusion. typically, and I'm talking from a global standpoint, it's about giving those entities that have had historically underutilized lack of opportunities the chance to participate in these bids. So it depends. And from a minority standpoint, for example, in South Africa, it's the Black-owned businesses. There are only 6 countries in general that outside of the US that have a definition for what a minority is. Canada, China, the UK, Brazil, and Australia, in addition to the one that I mentioned, South Africa. But it's also women. Women are 51% of the population. There's also the disabled-owned businesses that they're now starting to certify them in other parts of the world. And then there's the veterans, which is right now only the US, Canada, and the UK. But it does vary by country. But again, the goal of all of this work is really to find the best suppliers and anticipate the customer needs and find innovative solutions. But ultimately, it's about driving revenue and impact. One of our members, Procter & Gamble, had their chief procurement officer tell us that when women do better economically, they make better consumers. And first, I was impressed that that's coming from the chief procurement officer, but second, that it's a short and sweet and impactful statement. Now, of course, P&G is a brand-focused organization, and women do make most of the purchasing decisions, but it is important to have that business case for every organization. Globally, women control 20 trillion in annual consumer spending and make over 85% of the consumer purchasing decisions. And I understand that in a recent poll that almost half of all procurement professionals now are women, which has changed a lot over the last 20 years. So the trend is growing in terms of women being more influential. In the business case, why do companies do this? So it's about mirroring their global customer and employee base. And it's been shown that it comes back to even recruiting and retention of staff. There's a shortage of professional talent, especially now after COVID, and people, especially the younger generation, want to work for companies that are doing great work. And so it's not only from a consumer standpoint about mirroring your communities, but also from an HR standpoint. Supporting corporate clients. This is what we call tier 2, where corporations now that are really focused on sustainability and diversity and inclusion are requiring their supply chains to engage as well and be responsible. And so there's a lot of reporting that comes along with that. So that's sometimes the driver in terms of whether you get a contract or not with a large corporation, depending if you have a great supplier diversity and diversity program. It's about supporting business growth. 95% of consumers, I like to say, are outside of the US. And you look at the developing countries where the middle class is growing, those are where the opportunities are. It's about finding innovative suppliers and solutions. We had Marriott found a woman business in our network that developed a biodegradable drinking straw. We have a lot of women businesses that are in leading technologies in the IT sector. So a lot of times these diverse suppliers, they will start because they left a large organization and they couldn't find an opportunity for themselves to grow, or they had great ideas and they take off on their own and become very successful. A local content requirements is really about the extraction industries, oil and gas, minerals. So when companies go into new countries to develop their resources, the countries will ask, we don't only want you to hire our people to do your work, but we want you to use our supply chains as well. It's about reducing costs through increased competition. I had an experience when I was at Marriott International where I found a latex glove supplier and I brought it to the procurement people. They said, well, we already have someone and they're going to be more expensive. And so I kind of pushed for about 6 months and they finally said, okay, we'll put it out to bid. This diverse supplier came in at 15% lower than the incumbent. And I just needed that one validation to say, look, you don't know if they're going to be more expensive unless you actually put it out to bid. And that's why that rule of 1 that I mentioned earlier is to make sure that at least a diverse supplier is included in all bid opportunities. You don't know unless you check. And the perception is that sometimes these diverse suppliers are not going to be competitive. But again, I've proven that false. Accessing local knowledge and networks. For us, we work with embassies, ambassadors, governments around the world to help support our efforts. It takes the village really to make this work. It takes the corporations, the buyers, it takes the government and other organizations to help get together and focus on making sure that there's equal opportunities for all. And of course, it's about brand engagement, especially when you're looking at the communities where you operate and have a strong presence. So I just wanted to take a minute now and show a short video that we put together. I mentioned bias earlier. We found out, for example, in Asia, we had a woman business tell us that if she tells the male buyers she's woman-owned, they won't buy from her. And that really started us thinking, and we said we need to really focus on this a little bit more. So I have this video, it's just a minute, it's a short of the longer version that we have on our website, but just hope you can enjoy this here.
Here's the brutal truth, right? I'm biased, and so are you.
Once I was interrupted in the middle of a presentation by a man who said, "How can you handle this job? You didn't even polish your nails."
We've been told that because we're a women-owned business that we're a risky business.
It's like a club that you're a member, but you're not a member of. It's like you see from the glass, but you're never able to enter that room.
If you're not bringing in the best people who can propel your company forward, you can have an impact on your revenue, an impact on the products, and impact on your client sat.
It's so important that where you buy, where you live, where you work, that you have some representation of yourself.
So we have a lot of other great information that we have. I'm going to go through this quickly. We just have a few minutes left. But on our website, this is all free information. So if you go to WEConnectInternational.org, under buyer membership, there's a Supplier Diversity and Inclusion Resources page. We have the bias video, which is just 4.5 minutes, and we have it subtitled in certain languages. We have a C-suite video that explains just 3 minutes what is supplier diversity and inclusion. We have a business case report. We do webinars on a regular basis. We have this one that was tying in the UN Sustainable Development Goals to gender inclusive sourcing. We have what does supplier diversity look like in the Middle East and North Africa that was just from this year. And we have local corporations that are actually the ones talking as experts. It's not coming from the US, it's coming from each region. So these are really valuable resources, I think, that we have. We have one for Africa. We have a global standard checklist that we developed with IBM that you can download and look at all the different components necessary for a supplier diversity and inclusion initiative. So it's, again, this is all free information. We have a webinar on what does it look like in Europe and Asia Pacific. We have Latin America as well. We rank the top global champions of corporations on a regular basis. We're doing it now, I think, for the 5th year. It's also on our website. We have a tier 2 toolkit that we've developed so that you can engage your supply chain. And then not to get into it, but we also have research. And we have a list of all the key markets and supplier diversity perspective on women for each one of these key areas. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through it now, but it is available on our website. So we have what I'd say is the global business case is important, the checklist, and then this country market information. And then to end up, I just wanted to share with you one success story we had with a woman business in the network, Frida Gibbs, and she's based out of the UK. She's been doing business with IBM since 2012 as a tier 2, meaning her supplier, the IBM supplier, was using her. And then in 2015, she became a tier 1 supplier with her revenue with IBM alone was $10 million. And then she actually took this and became a corporate member of WEConnect International because of her revenue was so strong. But just to give you an idea of just there are so many women businesses like Frida Gibbs out there that are successful. And I just wanted to highlight here at the bottom, at the end, she provided over $1 million of cost savings to IBM as part of that. Now, IBM is only one of her clients, obviously, but it just goes to show the quality of the types of women businesses and other diverse suppliers that are out there in the community. It's just that often they don't want to say anything that they're diverse or no one is asked. So that's one of the key areas that we'll get into a little bit later with our panel. And for that, I'll turn it over to you and thank you very much. Charles, to you then.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let me quickly share my screen. Okay, yeah, once again, thank you. That was a really interesting presentation. We hope it gave everyone a really good introduction really into what supply chain diversity is and how you can benefit from it. And if your company would like to get connected with WEConnect, of course, you can reach out to Michael and the team directly. But of course, you're welcome to get in touch with us and we can make the introduction for you. So I'd now like to hand the session over to Rohit Batra, the Senior Director for MEA Purchases at Procter & Gamble. Now, with a background in engineering, Rohit began his career in Procter & Gamble, India, and has over 14 years experience. He now holds the position of Senior Director, Media and Marketing Logistics for Asia, Middle East and Africa, and all indirect spend for Middle East and Africa. He considers himself a corporate nomad who has worked across Singapore, Mumbai, Badi, Bhopal, and currently Dubai. He held a variety of procurement roles across direct, including chemicals, packaging, and hygiene, and indirect, including media, marketing, spend, facilities, and capital, both regionally and globally. So with that, Rohit, I would like to hand the podium over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Charles, and thanks, Michael, for the good session and setting up a lot of context to why we are doing what we are doing. As you guys all know, this is Rohit, a part of Procter & Gamble here in the Middle East region, handling the purchases. Broadly, why we talk equality and inclusion and is a broad sense of creating a company and a world which is equal. Be it supplier diversity, be it all the aspects which you talk about. For P&G, it comes from a fundamental belief that we can achieve by our actions, by what we do, we can achieve equality and inclusion. And the key thing there is for all. And you'll see why I'm saying all here. Because the way we have tried to develop this is we look at four aspects or four vectors where we touch things. One is employees, other is brands, then partners and communities. Broadly, we want, and I assume this is the agenda across most of our companies where we want to drive the right amount of equality and inclusion in our employees, because all of us believe that it's the power of diversity, the power of thoughts and power of ideas, which is much bigger than when you don't have it, when you don't have the diverse thought and ideas. Brands, it is the most complex. How do we drive inclusion and how do we drive equality across our brands? But that is again one of the themes which as a company we look at, we work on. Partners is something which we are going to talk today in detail, but that's the third leg of our P&G's equality and inclusion agenda. So while we are working on employees, we're working on brands. It was a few years back, almost 5 to 7 years back, or a little more, when we identified that are we really following it to the T? Because one of the biggest areas where a company like ours could influence things was our partners. We are one of the big spenders across the globe. We spend about $45 to $50 billion across the globe. And it's a meaningful amount of money to do the right thing or to drive certain change if we believe in it. And that's where the journey of bringing partners into this overall pillar of equality and inclusion came through. Last but not the least is communities. We want to do the right thing wherever we are, in whichever community we are, and hence we have a broader plan on equality and inclusion in the communities as well. As I said, the belief here, why equality and inclusion? The belief is very simple, that it's the power of diversity. It's the power of coming together by different diverse thoughts, different diverse experiences, power of coming together to achieve some shared value and purpose. And we believe that is way bigger than not having diversity or having a common set of things which we have. Michael already pointed out our CPO and our CEO many times have said that having the right women-owned supplier doesn't just make sense from a purchasing or a procurement standpoint, but it makes a wise consumer. It makes sense from our consumer-based standpoint also. So net, while it might have a broad contextual theme to it of equality and inclusion, but it also makes sense from a business standpoint. It is the right thing to do for any business as well. I'll deep dive into partners here. Why partners, how we thought about it, and how this whole is coming to life. And let me step back on our journey in Middle East Africa. We started our journey on this topic on partners in Middle East Africa about 3-4 years back, when we had a spend of about, we analyzed we were spending not more than 1.5% to 2% of our spend with women-owned business. Multiple challenges, internal, external, but we said no, we want to go on a different path, and we want to start with being more equitable in our spending across the different suppliers. And the key to it was women-owned businesses. As Michael already pointed out, and this is a stark data, and this is a very useful data which we always keep in front of us. Globally, while 1/3 of companies or B2B companies are owned by women, only 1 to 2% of business, B2B business, goes to those women-owned companies or from a spending standpoint, which is a big anomaly, which is a big anomaly which opened our eyes to why we should do things differently. And hence we started our journey. Our base was we want to drive equitable spending across different types of suppliers, and we want to focus on women-owned suppliers. As we focus on women-owned suppliers, we could do multiple things. We could start ourselves. That was first goal, that let's start ourselves. Let's see how can we engage with more women-owned partners, make them part of our bid process, at least open up the platform, open up the doors for them to be part of the process. That was one big enabler. Second big enabler which we worked with was to actually work with our partners. For example, it was more about working with my suppliers so that they could also build supplier diversity as part of their agenda, to bring the right diverse supplier, to bring the right equality and inclusion theme into their own strategies, became one of our asks. Did not mandate it, but it was a very obvious ask for the right business reasons, and that started coming to life over a period of time. And last but not the least was leveraging our own organizations and policies. How we, if I have to deep dive, and if anyone has to leverage and think about how to bring it to life, uh, this is a simple chart which we have developed over a period of time as to how do we think about it. It all starts with the leadership. If any company, any organization is looking at bringing more equality and inclusion, more diversity around supply chain into the picture, it all starts with the leadership. Leadership, not just to say that yes, we need it, but to define why we need it. A lot of people need that rational sense of why before jumping into it. And even sometimes leaders themselves need that rational sense of why versus me or Michael or anyone else or even CPO of P&G saying it. It is the leaders who have to first understand why do they need it? What does it mean for their business? For some, it might be a very business oriented objective that it makes sense for my business. For others, it might be playing a bigger part in the society because you want to see an equal and inclusive society. So it is really defining that business case and why it is important in your organization, in the context of your organization. And as that is defined, do define the goals on the journey. Where do you want to go? Coming back to our example, I said in the region we were about 1.5 to 2% about 3-4 years back. At that time, we defined the goal, and this was in line with P&G company's goal that we want to go to 10% by 2030. It's a far-fetched goal at that time. No one knew that how could you go 10 times on the spend in a matter of 8 to 10 years. But we said, why not? Let's go to this goal of 10% spending across the globe. And we followed that goal in the region as well. Second step which we took and which was very critical was awareness and education. It is not the leaders who will go and to the trenches and do the things on this topic. It's normally the people who are into middle of action day to day, who are into those bidding processes, who will work to bring this to life. And hence, what is critical is awareness, to make sure that people understand the whys of it, the business case of it, the organization understands. And as you do this, you will find some champions, some advocates, some naysayers, some don't care. You'll find all types of people, which is actually diversity, which is equally important. But the part is, are they aware? Is everyone in the organization, does everyone in the organization understand the business case, the goals, and why we are doing it? Once that is done, here comes the real journey. Here comes the smartest part of it, which is identifying the right champions. once you have done the awareness and the education step, you will realize that there are some people who are really passionate about it, who will go and get it done, who have the passion, who have the inherent passion to get it done. Those are the people you need to start with, because those are the people who will not look at obstacles, who will look at solutions, who will not look at problems and challenges. They will just look at opportunities. Because as you start this journey, there will be hundreds of challenges, hundreds of issues. A big challenge when we were doing this journey was the fact that there were no women-owned, there were not much women-owned businesses in the region, or not much in the region who we could work with or who could meet our standards, quality, and all. And then with the help of WeConnect and everyone, we came up with the idea of having women-owned business academies where we want to educate them. We want to enable them to how to work with companies like us. What are we looking for? What standards do companies ask for, be it quality, be it processes, be it systems. And this became an enabler of us getting exposed to multiple of women-owned businesses, as well as them getting exposed to what a company like P&G looks for, what a big MNC looks for in its suppliers. So, and this is these champions who can initiate these kind of journeys, who can initiate these kind of connects, events, and start bringing this journey to life. And then once this journey comes to life, then it is a matter of momentum and carrying it forward. And the best way to drive momentum and carry it forward is to measure and celebrate success. I'm happy that we had a goal of 10% in 2030. We we very strongly believe that we will meet that goal of 10% in next 2 years. Today, we are at almost 7+%. So we have tripled our spending in last 3 years. I have no doubt that we will cross 10% in next 1 to 2 years. And that is the momentum. That is what has happened in this journey over last 3 to 4 years. Last but not the least, all of this is very logical, codified plan. Anyone and everyone can take it. But as it is called out many times, it's the culture. Because you can have any strategy, but if the culture is not set right, that's where the strategy will fail. And culture, you have to culturally look at, is your organization culturally accepting the fact around equality and inclusion overall? Supplier diversity is one of the themes. It will not get digested well unless an organization thinks equal across, and that's where it starts. So while the strategy, the actions can flow through, but make sure the culture of the organization is same. The organization is breathing the same things which you are talking around, and it has to start in a bigger picture of employees, in a bigger picture of thinking equality, and then hence flowing it down to your partners as well. So that's a broad story. On P&G front, we are very pleased and happy on where we are in this journey. WeConnect has been a great support. As I said, we have tripled our spend today. We believe we'll cross 10% spending in next 1 to 2 years, and we are obviously developing a broader and a bigger plan of how to move forward, because we still see a big gap and an opportunity to drive more equality and inclusion in this space. With that, I would pass it back to Charles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Another really fascinating presentation there. And I think what was really stood out for me was just seeing how P&G have been on that journey. And when you have the right culture in place, when you have the right leadership direction in place, and the ambition, you can get there. And there might be some companies who are today perhaps haven't quite started the journey with supply chain diversity and inclusion. But remember, P&G were there once, so you can start your own journey today as well. So thank you again, Rohit, for that. Okay, so that concludes our speaker session. So we've kind of addressed the why and the how. So now we'd like to do a proper deep dive into the topic in more detail and get some more perspectives for you in the form of a panel discussion. So we've got 4 fantastic panelists lined up for you today. Welcoming back Michael as the moderator and Rohit as one of the panelists as well. But I'd also like to introduce you to two new panelists as well. First up, we have Diana Saikali. Diana is the MEA Strategic Sourcing Lead, MNS Distributors Services Commercial AMEA for Mars. And now Diana is a certified procurement and supply chain professional. She has worked in Lebanon for the leading fast-moving consumer goods in their industries, including Procter & Gamble and British American Tobacco. Since moving to Dubai, Diana has worked for 2 of the most renowned tech startups in the region. Firstly, establishing the procurement department at Noon.com, and secondly, heading the procurement for Careem. Diana is currently working as the MEA Strategic Sourcing Lead for Marketing and Sales at Mars. And in this role, she is responsible for establishing strategies for all marketing categories through Mars and a network of over 50 distributors across the region. So welcome you, Diana, to the session.
Thank you.
Also introducing Peter Zerk. Peter is the Supplier Inclusion and Diversity Program Lead at Accenture. Now, Peter has been with Accenture for 15 years and has extensive knowledge of procurement and supplier inclusion and diversity. He leads Accenture's Global Supplier Inclusion Champions Network within local programs and develops programs in new markets. Peter also drives the accessibility workstream to help improve accessibility of talent with disabilities of all vendor-managed technology. So welcoming Peter to the panel as well. So without further ado, I would like to hand you over to your moderator for today, Michael, who will be fielding and hosting questions to the panel. So over to you, Michael. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Charles. And thank you for, again, the opportunity for us to talk about the specifics and how to start and grow supplier diversity initiatives at your company. We're going to have a panel discussion for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have 15 minutes at the end of this to talk and answer some of your questions. So please feel free to put them in the chat, as Charles had mentioned earlier, and we're happy to address those questions. So let's get started. So Peter, can we start with you, please? Since Accenture has been doing this for quite some time, can you tell us about your company's supplier diversity efforts and when they were started?
Sure. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much for having us today in the panel. So Accenture started its Supply Inclusion and Diversity program in 2002 already in the US. And actually, we're calling it Supplier Inclusion and Diversity because we always say that we want to create equal opportunities, and that's why we also like to include the word inclusion. We started the program in the US in 2002, but then around 2008-09, we decided that we should also do this on a global level. So we started in 2009 with our global program. We were one of the co-founders of WEConnect International, one of the corporations that started the organization because we thought we needed an ecosystem partner to help us find the women-owned businesses for sourcing opportunities. And since then, we first started in Canada and the UK, and since then we've been expanding our program into 21 countries across all continents. So North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and Middle East, and Australia and Asia. So we're all over the place. A key element of our program where we see that we can really make a difference and an impact is our mentoring program. We call it our Diverse Supply Development Program because we also see, and I think Michael touched on it in his presentation, is that we also want to help the women-owned businesses to be ready to supply to a company like Accenture. So a key differentiator for our program is that mentoring program where we help those businesses to understand what it means to supply to a company like us, how they can be successful in tenders, but also help them with all the challenges that they have when growing their business and really become a large and long-term supplier to a large corporation. So that's a key element of our program. Also started in the US, but we're doing this now in 7 countries also across the continent.
Thank you, Peter. Hi, Diana. Can you talk a little bit about Mars, please?
Yeah,
Again, supplier diversity and when it was started.
sure. Thanks a lot, Michael. And again, thanks a lot for this opportunity. Sorry. this opportunity to speak today. So basically, at Mars, we're a bit of late starters, I would say, into this program of supplier diversity and inclusion. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but Mars has a sustainability and a generation agenda, which triggered the focus also on sustainability, and within it, it would be, you know, diversity and inclusion is a focus area as well for us. And it started a bit late, I would say. It kicked off in 2020 in the US as well, like Peter mentioned, and the program is now expanding as we speak into the other, you know, global markets. Middle East and Africa, I mean, this is really a 2022 effort where we started implementing measures, and I am representing Middle East and Africa within Mars to drive the program and drive the educational part of it to towards, you know, increasing our database of inclusive and diverse suppliers.
Thank you, Diana.
It's very recent.
And Rohit, I know you shared a lot in your presentation, but can you share any more about when it started at P&G and overall focus geographically, perhaps?
Yeah, I can more globally, as a lot of us have heard the story around, but I can more focus on the region. For us, the regional journey around this started in 2017, 18, I would say, roughly. That's when we started moving forward and understanding what does it take. And as I said, few initial hiccups, and one of the big initial hiccups, or I would say myth, was there are not many women-owned suppliers in the region anyways. So what can we do? What can we do differently? And that's where our champions said, if there are not many, whosoever is there or whosoever is wanting to be there, even if it is she or that business is small, why don't we help them? Why don't we enable them? And that's where the thoughts around working with the WEConnect, bringing the programs and everything came into place. COVID had a role to play as we moved forward. In the midst of COVID, it came both as a boon and a bane, because earlier for all these programs, we had to make sure people are available, travel, this, budgets, and then you can imagine in companies like us, it is never so straightforward. But with COVID, we started doing a lot of these programs virtually. So it made it easy. But at the same time, we could still not drive the right networks. So it had its plus and minus. So I believe COVID accelerated the journey in some forms, put us back in certain others, but net last 4 years has been exciting, least to say, in this journey. We have tripled our spending. And that's purely in terms of numbers. But I believe we have had a very meaningful impact. It is very satisfying to see when you are part of these events, when you are part of these connects. It's very satisfying to see that the role we are playing, our teams are playing in this journey. And I can tell you one thing which I'm super proud. We had a new hire join us about 3 months back. 3 months back, and one of the things she told me that she had a few other offers and she chose to join P&G was because she came across this whole equality and inclusion piece on P&G and how P&G was making such a big difference. So it clearly shows that the sense people have, the sense the millennials have, the sense the new generation has around driving an equal world. So they choose companies, they choose organizations to work with which firmly believe in these things and are doing the right thing.
Thank you, Rohit. And I just wanted to underscore something that several of you said is about tracking and measurement. I know we'll get into this later, but when you can track and measure and set goals, that's how things really happen. And so it's really impressive, and I think it helps galvanize the organization, especially if you make a public goal that everybody's working towards that same objective. Rohit, can you talk a little bit more about your business case at P&G? What's the standard line? I know I mentioned a comment from the Chief Procurement Officer, but is there a more formal business case that you have at P&G?
Two business case, or let's say two agendas. two agendas which drive it, and one pure business. More than half of my business, pretty much more than 70% of my business as P&G, the decision maker is women. If you talk about sanitary pads, if you talk about Pampers, if you talk about laundry, if you talk about skincare products, hair care products, so P&G is serving a lot of women in the world. The decision maker are women, so enabling them, empowering them means a better consumer for me practically. So it's a very straightforward business case for us. And the second business case is how we work. And most of us would have seen in our organization is the power of diversity. When we work with diverse partners, the ideas are multiplied. Ideas are multiplied manyfold versus working with similar set of suppliers and partners over a period of time. And we have seen that. And with these ideas is innovation. Innovation leads to better business outcomes, growth, and better business results. So those are the two proven business results which we have seen. Actually, there are certain data and numbers behind it which our teams have generated over a period of time of how our business has seen better growth wherever we have been part of the journey of driving more suppliers, women-based suppliers, as well as our ideas have grown, which again has impacted the business results.
Diana, how about at Mars in terms of a business case?
Well, I would say, to be very honest, as I said, as the effort is recent, however, what we noticed was that our diverse suppliers spend across Mars globally is actually less than 2%, which actually what triggered, if you want, this discussion around what are the efforts we need to put to increase this number. And I'll talk a bit later about the targets, but we do have like now a set of targets that we are working towards at Mars to increase this percentage and contribute, you know, to the society we live in, as well as, like I said, you know, deliver this sustainable intergeneration agenda that Mars has overall all aspects or all areas of our company.
Thank you, Diana. And Peter, I know Accenture not only has a really strong effort for quite some time, but you also work with a lot of other companies as well in helping them start their supplier diversity initiatives. So could you share Accenture and what you've seen in terms of any other best practices on business case from other corporations?
Yeah, so for us, I think what I wanted to say first is, you know, our CPO kind of oversell. So when he became CPO, he changed our procurement into Procurement Plus because he always says that, you know, we do more than just cost savings and managing contracts. You know, we really want to add value to our operations, but also to our clients. And that's how we approach it as well. We're curious, right? I'm a buyer, and because I'm a buyer, I'm very curious because I want to know what's out there in the market. So I want to meet with businesses that can help us improve our operations, can help us support our clients better. And by having a supplier diversity program, and that's what our leadership says as well, is that by having a program like that, we can tap from all sorts of sources where we can find innovative businesses, including all those diverse-owned businesses. And I think that's one reason why we're having a program like this, because we really want to meet those businesses. At the same time, you know, Accenture has 710,000 employees serving our clients in 120 countries. That's 120 markets. Markets that we want to thrive, that we want to be inclusive, because when these markets thrive, we're making communities stronger, which will help not just our clients, but also Accenture. And that is how, that is for us the business case for a Supplier Inclusion and Diversity program. And the great thing what I see is I'm in Europe, I'm based in Amsterdam, and when I started working on supplier diversity, this program was still new for us in Europe, right? People didn't really see the benefit yet of it. I even got responses like, you know, this is a nice thing to have. It's not really a business imperative. And we've come a long way, and I see more and more corporations also that are European headquartered to see the benefit of having a supplier diversity program. So we really see the growth here in our continent, but also in the Middle East, by people recognizing the fact that, you know, wanting to be a responsible business, want to be purpose-driven business, you have to have also an inclusive supply chain. And so that's wonderful that we see that more. And Accenture, being part of that ecosystem, of course, loves to help other corporations to start their program.
And Diana, you mentioned you started on the U.S. Can you share a little bit more about what regions, countries you're working on today in terms of supply diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so as I said, again, like you mentioned, so in 2020, the effort started in the US, in North America, and now starting this year, we've actually expanded to the global countries, basically. And the effort that is put is that we formed, as we speak, we formed like a committee within Mars that is, having representatives from each area, each country that is part of the program. To actually drive the agenda and to deliver the targets that we have put for all the markets. And I would say that in Middle East and Africa, we really very focused on advancing and delivering, despite the fact that 2022 we don't really actually have a target yet for our region. But it is just the year of baselining. So we're building information and we're trying to see how we will drive this program forward.
Diana, can you share how is it decided which regions to focus on? Is that done as part of that committee?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Yeah, how do you decide which parts of the world you're going to focus on?
It is the committee work. So currently the committee is working on the focus regions. Again, North America is already part of the program. However, European countries and the Middle Eastern countries are now, as we speak, being developed. So the program will be fully clear by end of this year, I would say, by end of 2022 for the other regions than North America.
And Rohit, just I guess to share, how is it decided for P&G what markets to focus on with supply diversity and inclusion? Is it the countries where you do business, source from?
Normally, what markets to focus on, we don't really go by from a back end standpoint what markets to focus on. It's more decided on the fact of where do I need my products and materials and where is my base. Normally where I have a base, it's most easiest for me. And then that's part of my third pillar, which is communities, my fourth pillar of equality and inclusion, which is communities. As P&G, we would like more and more to serve and get served via communities as close as possible. If I'm working in Saudi, I would like to be part of that Saudi ecosystem. If I'm working in Nigeria, I would like to be part of that Nigeria ecosystem versus living on supply chains which are 1,000 kilometers apart and do not really bring and serve the local communities or drive that equality and inclusion in the local communities.
And Peter, how is it decided for Accenture in terms of where to start or focus on?
Yeah, so what we look at is basically is where Accenture serves our clients in 120 markets, but we really look at where does Accenture has the biggest footprint, where do we have a considerable supply chain, also do we have local leadership. We have global leadership engagement, but we also want our global leaders to be engaged into this as well, sponsor this. And of course, you need to have some procurement people that can help us drive the program locally. So we have champions. We have a champions network in all the countries where we have a program. And they actually help us to drive it on a local level because they know the language, the culture, the market, they know where the opportunities are. So they can really help us drive it forward. Because I'm in Amsterdam, I'm not in Dubai or in Riyadh. So I really need my people over there, our people over there to help us drive the program. And I think that it really works well for us. Also very important is to have an ecosystem partner like WEConnect International to be in the country. Because we need to have business networks that can help us find the businesses, right? You can't Google them. So you really need local business networks or help support to establish a business network like WeConnect in the country to help us find them, certify them, making sure that we meet them. So these are a few things that we look at if it's viable for us to have a program.
Let's stay with you, Peter, on the next question, because you're maybe you've been doing this for quite some time. What are the first steps to look at when you're starting off a supplier diversity initiative? What is it you need to think about, and what resources, if any, are needed?
Well, like I said earlier, I think it's so important that you have the leadership engaged. I mentioned our CPO, Kaino Husel, who we directly report to. He really sees the benefit for procurement, for internal stakeholders, for our client of having a supply inclusion and diversity program, because it really helps us to find those suppliers that we otherwise would never meet. So it's very important you have that global leadership engagement and local leadership engagement, that they see the benefit for Accenture as a company and for our supply chain. So that needs to be established. Also, you need to understand, if you look at local markets as well, is what are the legal incentives? Michael, you mentioned a few countries where there are definitions. There are a few countries where there is legislation, like in South Africa. Australia has a new legislation around Aboriginal-owned businesses. So, if there are legal incentives to have a program, so that's important to understand. But also barriers. What can you do? What can't you do? And that helps you to really customize and focus on what's important for the market. And if you look at the UAE or at Saudi Arabia, for instance, really great focus on gender inclusion. So it makes sense for us to really focus on that and help, for instance, WEConnect to grow. So that's something that you should look at as well. Also understand your baseline. So we talked about KPIs. Well, first, of course, you need to know, what do I already have? Maybe you already have women-owned businesses in your supply chain. So try to figure out, and WEConnect can help you with that, what kind of women-owned suppliers you already have out there, so that you could register your spend with them and create a baseline, but also help them to understand that there are business networks out there that can help us to find more clients besides yourself. And you can set yourself some KPIs. As well. And having that local champion, like I said earlier, is important, that you have somebody on the ground that can help you grow the program and set you up for success.
It's quite a bit. Dinah, anything you'd like to share?
Work. Yeah.
Anything you'd like to share from a Mars perspective?
I think Peter, he really covered most of it, but I'm gonna just say that whatever Peter said is really true, 100%. And like I mentioned earlier, so we actually established a working group with champions from each region that represent the region to drive, as Peter said, to drive the agenda in their region. So first of all, you have to have the right resources. Second, he mentioned also the baselining. He didn't leave us anything to add, but yeah, the baselining. So really knowing your internal information, like where you are, where do you stand, and this is something we're working on currently, like building the data about our own current database of suppliers, how many of these are diverse, and where do we stand in terms of diversity, and also availability of diverse suppliers in the markets we operate in. So whether or not we can or have access to information. And at Mars, I'm sure that other companies have the same setup, especially when you're a multinational. You have some categories that are globally led. So those categories, it's a bit difficult for us to, in the region, I'm saying, if I'm talking about Middle East and Africa, it's difficult for us to influence the sourcing or the supplier base for those categories. However, we have local categories that we can influence, and those are the ones we will be focusing on. So really knowing your data, the information, where do you stand, having a target is very important, and having the buy-in of the leadership is very important. So really having your leadership, acknowledging and sponsoring the program is what we looked at when we started. Yeah.
Thank you, Diana. And Rohit, in terms of any tools or resources, what would you say is needed? I know that we've talked about champions and how important they are to find passionate individuals that are going to be positive change agents. What else do you think you need for the audience in terms of getting started or having a successful effort?
Multiple two ways to think about it. One is people, other is process, system, and tool. Let me answer the easier one first, which is the process, system, and tools. So you clearly need certain tools to measure the progress. We have a simplified version of those tools inside. We use the dashboards and pick up the right data. So we have developed those tools internally which helps us measure the progress, which really keeps people on track and which really keeps people engaged, that how are we moving. And the other tools you need is the engagement plannings, that how do you really enable more women partners? Do you already have a built-in cookbook or a playbook saying this is how the structures are, this is how we operate, this is what we are looking from you? Because you need to enable a lot of them in our part of the world. And then you need people, and people come in all forms and manners and shapes and sizes. So starting from a new hire who joined me 3 months ago, just because she felt this is a company which believes so much in equality and inclusion, is the right person, to my CEO who stands when I do a women-owned business entrepreneur academy. He spends a day, a full day taking out from his schedule, and he spends that one day with those entrepreneurs, training them, guiding them, and it shows the intent. It just says to the whole company that that's the intent. So you need those people standing by you and being part of the journey, not just in paper, but being part of the journey in all forms, in real shape, size, and skin.
Thank you, Rohit. What I'm hearing the three of you say too, how culture is so important in the organization, and how do you have that right culture to get this started? Because it won't succeed unless you have people that are committed. It's part of the culture, and of course the business case, that it makes economic business sense at the bottom line. So when you talk to people within the organization, they say, why are we doing this? You can point and say, here's how we benefit as an organization. So those are the things that I've learned along the way, and I hear it from others in terms of best practices.
Let me just add, and as I said, you will find all types of people. There are some rational thinkers, there are some emotional people, there are some people who need different goals and things in life. It is good to address all of them, and this agenda actually helps all of them. You'll help some of the people who think very rationally by giving a number that this is how the business gets impacted, and then there are some others who want to do the right thing for the community around them. You give them that pitch. So it's addressing the people as to what their interests are in, or what drives them. And this whole initiative, I believe, has multiple legs to it, which goes in all these directions, which has a positive impact in all these directions.
The one thing that I also wanted to add too, in terms of what you need to get started with, is having whether it's a website or just a formal commitment that you can put on your website, and a way for the diverse suppliers to reach out to you. Many companies have a process in place, and they have an actual supplier diversity registration portal. It could be as simple as a PDF form that please fill out this form and tell us what your diverse background is, et cetera, and what you do, that you can have somebody review, or a more formal process. I can share with you what Sodexo has, is that when you register as a diverse supplier, someone physically looks at that application and says whether there's a fit or not. And if there's no fit, they respond and say, thanks, but no thanks. If there is a fit, it will go to the procurement person in charge of that area, and they will look at it and respond and say, we don't have anything now because we just signed a contract, but come back to us in a year and a half or 2 years, or we do have some and we'd like to talk more. But there's the closing of that loop, and it's really important, because sometimes if you tell the diverse community that you're really interested in doing business, but you never respond, you do yourself a disservice, and it's actually worse than not doing anything at all. So it is really important, because these people talk amongst themselves as well. So if you're going to make a commitment, then you're publicly saying you're going to do, spend more with diverse suppliers, and have an action plan that somebody's actually taking action, following up, and reporting back what's actually happening. I wanted to ask a next question in terms of what does accountability work? How does that work, and what role does it play within this organization in terms of success? And Rohit, if I could start with you, because I know there's a lot of accountability at P&G.
Accountability, yeah. I would, as I said, goals and accountability is an important pillar, which is critical, and people are driven in a lot of our organizations. People are driven by clear goals, clear measures, and clear ownership. And you need to have in our company, we are very clear that the accountability, of course, stops at the senior leadership level, at the CEO level. But from an external standpoint, accountability is me. I am accountable to deliver what is to be delivered. And not just because it is a number on the paper, because I fundamentally believe in it. So in some other markets, in PNG, you might see it is not the purchase person or someone else who is accountable. We fundamentally believe that these kind of initiatives, while yes, they make business sense, they are important, and everyone should be invested into it. But to do the right thing, to take care of those obstacles, you need to find the people who are personally invested into it, who really believe into this initiative, who really believe that this is the right thing to do. And that's where we put the accountability. Every region you will see, and one thing we assure that the accountability is at the senior leadership level, because that is where you are able to draw the right attention, draw the right resources within the organization to get things moving.
Peter, anything to add on accountability?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge commitment from our global leadership, whether it's Julie Street, our CEO, who really sees this part of her 5 pillars. And one of the pillars is being a responsible business, and she recognized that the supply chain plays a big part of that. So she externally has committed to that. Also internally, I mentioned our champions. So we have our champions network, people who are really doing this on top of their day job. Challenge with that is that they're doing it on top of their day job, which is always already super busy. Often they do 2 day jobs. So what we're looking at currently now is to integrate it more in their procurement role, make it a part of their buyer role, so that they can allocate really time to also be more engaged into supply inclusion and diversity. It will also help us to expand the markets that we're having a program in. And I want to turn it around as being accountable by saying that we recognize them. So for everything they do, I have my rock star. I see her here on the list as well, Anu Telikigela, who's based in the United Arab Emirates. He's one of our biggest champions. We really want to recognize them for all the great work that they're doing locally. So that also helps us to create a little bit of peer pressure, because if people see that I'm recognizing Anu for her great work, some others might get encouraged and inspired to ask her, how do you do that? And can I do that in my own country as well? So that is also how we're trying to expand our program, by reversing it and not just saying, you have to do this, you have to meet your targets, but we really want to recognize them for the wonderful things that they do outside their daily roles.
And Diana, anything else you'd like to add on the accountability within Mars?
I think just to build on what Rohit and Peter said, I agree 100% with them. And I would say that, of course, having the right targets and goals in place, and like I said before, the sponsorship of the leadership team is very important to keep the accountability, but also I would say education, like really educating everybody within the organization about the targets and the goals of this program and why it is being done. So we mentioned the business case and how to make it a success story is having the buy-in of all the organization, so that everybody becomes a driver in the program. Of course, there will be champions, working in each region, but we have to have the support of every stakeholder, or what we call, the associates at Mars. So all the colleagues that we have need to be understanding the goals of the program, so that everybody is held accountable.
Great, thank you, Diana. Before we go to the question and answer period, we just wanted to ask if each of you could take a minute and just share one key piece of advice that you would offer anyone looking to start off their supplier diversity and inclusion initiatives. So Diana, we'll start with you.
Well, I would say having the passion about the topic is very important. So I would really advise whoever is, wants to start or is already a supplier who wants to participate or be part of, becoming this supplier who provides the diversity or increases diversity agendas of the companies they want to deal with. I would say work on your own as well. I would say sustainability as a whole within your own company, to provide the right support to the companies you're going to be working with and become visible. I think it's very important to become visible, to be participating or getting certified by, companies such as WEConnect or any other, where, you become a part of a database that is accessible, I would say, to companies such as, Mars or any other company. And information is very important. So really, data and analyzing the data is very important. Having the right tools in place to collect this information is also very important. Those are the things I can think about. And educating everybody about it. It's very important to educate people about the importance of the program and what does it mean.
Thank you. Rohit, one piece of advice from you.
I believe I've already given a lot, but if I have to keep it simple and straightforward, start somewhere. Start somewhere and start now. It's very easy to put a 5-year plan and then put it in a drawer and hopefully someone will achieve it. What is difficult is when you just start the journey. You say, I want to start today and I want to start somewhere, and then new goals will come in. You will see the guiding light and things will start rolling.
Thank you, Rohit. And Peter.
Yeah, the only thing I can add to these already wonderful tips is that, don't feel you're on your own. You already are in this webinar, so you have Diana, Rohit, Michael, already as great experts to help you out because they already are experienced. So there's always somebody who always has done that. So start a conversation, reach out to somebody via LinkedIn and just ask them, how did you do it? How did you start your program? And how can I apply it to my industry and my category and my work? And how can I engage my leaders? So, there's a lot of people already have done that for a long time. So don't start from scratch. Reinvent the wheel, connect with WeConnect today because they can help you get you on your way. And it rhymes, by the way.
Thank you very much, Peter. Okay, so we have one question in here already. It's great that you all work in companies that have supportive leaders, but what advice would you give to employees who work for companies where there is no support driving changes from the top? Anyone like to take that?
It's difficult, I would say, because if you saw when I said what made our journey possible was starting from the leadership level. So it is difficult, but however, it is not impossible. You can still be the change agent. All of us in our companies are empowered in certain size and scope to do things which we believe are right for the organization, for our business, of course, in the boundaries of compliance and right setup. So as I was saying, start somewhere. It's okay if your company does not have a goal of going to 10% by 20 something and doing this or doing that, but at least on your desk, if you believe in it fundamentally, you got to start somewhere and let that change flow through. Be the change agent and let that change flow through and let people see the impact and let it grow on everyone else.
And if I can add to that too, I think, looking at your industry peers, if you find companies that you're competing with that are doing this work around the world, then you can bring that to your leadership and saying, look, this is something that maybe we could help us with a competitive advantage. It's always good to benchmark and find out what other companies are doing within the industries, just as an FYI. Peter, Diana, anything else to add to that one? Okay.
No, I agree 100%. I just want to say that you need to bring like a success story or a business case, as we said earlier. I think every leadership would be interested to see the added value that any program can bring to them. So really show the added value, even if it's a small added value, like Rohit mentioned. So start small, like baby steps, but show some value. And I think this is what procurement is. Is there for, to add value to the organization. So really bring a small case or a small study that can show the added value.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it already, Michael, but yeah, look at your industry peers, what they're doing. But also, try to find somebody in your company who thinks the same way, and shares the passion that you have, and see if you can, convince, try to find a business case that works for your company, that, and convince your leadership that, that this has a competitive advantage for your company. I've been on my soapbox for a long time, for so many programs and so many reasons, and eventually it works, as long as you keep the passion, and you can always talk to us.
This goes into the next question, but when I worked at Marriott International, we started off, we were fortunate where we had the general counsel as an executive sponsor, and he came up with an idea of having a board level committee focused on diversity and inclusion, because in the US, there are several organizations that rank companies in terms of their performance around diversity and inclusion. So there was outside pressure to make sure that we were doing the best, because that was how we would attract guests staying in the hotels. But this whole group was formed, and it was directed by one of the board of directors, and we had several other board members on this committee. They called it Committee for Excellence at the time. And then they had each division head would also be part of that, and we would have to report up. It was about supplier diversity, HR diversity. It was about philanthropy diversity, and sales and marketing. And there was so much peer pressure at that level to really help us open doors within the organization. That was the next question, is how does this information reach the board? And I was just going to share that's one of the ways, is to have an executive sponsor that can make sure that they're part of this. Anybody else would like to share how the board finds out about supplier diversity, or if there's reporting up to the board in your organizations around this work?
Well, we do include our progress in our, that's what you mean, in our UN Global Compact, do I say that right? Progress report. So we have our report where we include our supply chain and how, we're building a responsible supply chain. It includes sustainability, but also inclusion and diversity. So we make sure that's in there. And that's something that, is also internally being shared with our CEO and with her board. So that's something that we do. We also do all sorts of researches in markets on how, how we as Accenture can really benefit from building a more responsible and inclusive market, because it really benefits Accenture as well, right? Because it's also another way to support our clients. So that's something that we also bring to our leadership, is how can we, make supply inclusion and diversity part of how we support our clients. And I think that really resonates even to people who are yet still cynical about, why this is important from a, inclusion and diversity perspective. It also helps to convince people that say, okay, yeah, there's a benefit for Accenture as well. Yeah, this is something I can support.
Rohit, you were going to share something?
No, I was just saying that for us, it is a part of our annual report. As simple, we have a board level sponsorship to the whole initiative on equality and inclusion, and we have a quarterly report going on there, both to our internal employees as well as external shareholders.
The next question, or part of the question, was how is this impacting companies as part of their ESG initiatives? So I know more and more companies have supplier diversity reporting up to ESG. So this is open to anyone on the panel. How does this work in your organization? Is there a tie-in to ESG?
Yes, it definitely is. Like I said earlier, we look at supply chain from all angles. So, creating a more responsible supply chain. We also look at the Sustainable Development Goals. So we want to see how we as a program can support all Accenture's ambitions around those 17 goals. So definitely inclusion and diversity reports into that as well.
Same for Mars, actually. So this program is going to be reporting, as I said, in a sustainable intergeneration agenda of Mars. So it is serving the same purposes of, our agenda of becoming sustainable in generation. So it will feed into this program. Therefore, it has been actually sponsored, as I said, by our leadership teams, and it is now going to become reported as part of our annual plans, and the targets will be actually looked at as part of that.
Thank you. And by the way, we are hosting a complimentary session on September 27th on ESG sustainability and supplier diversity and inclusion. It's on our calendar website. It's free. We'll have representatives, including Accenture. We have 3 CPOs and 3 chief sustainability officers to be there to talk about that, and also human trafficking. So it should be a great discussion of how this all ties together. And then the last part of that question was, how is this impacting the stock value for those institutions investing in ethical stocks? And I would say that this is just becoming more and more important in terms of these funds, the stock price. There was a group, it's called the CEO Roundtable 2 years ago, came out in the US. It's based on about 190 US-based multinational CEOs, but they basically said in writing that we understand that we have to go beyond our shareholder value. We have to look at our employees, our communities, and our supply chains in terms of diversity. And the fact that they put that out there in writing has really, I think, caused a major growth awareness around the world with CEOs to say how important this is. And yes, you're right. We as consumers ultimately make the decisions of which companies we're going to support, which of course will affect the price per earnings, among other things. So I think it all ties together. There's a question about great content and advise where we can find a comprehensive list of diverse suppliers. So I can tell you that WEConnect International is part of our membership, that you have access to the women businesses that are based in the region. I'm not aware of any other organizations yet working in the Middle East in terms of supplier diversity and inclusion, but happy to pass that on. If we find something out, we can maybe get back to Charles and let him know. Is anybody else aware of anything happening in the region in terms of other organizations yet? I know we're probably first. Okay. Right, well, I think we're at time. I wanted to thank the panelists, Diana, Rohit, and Peter, for just a wonderful exchange. And Charles, thank you again for the opportunity to be with everybody today. And turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you to all the panelists for a absolutely fascinating discussion there. Really got into the detail. Of course, three experienced professionals from three very advanced organizations in supplier diversity. So thank you very much, Diana, Peter, Rohit, for your interesting insights, and thank you, Michael, as well, for moderating. Okay, so that concludes today's session. A huge thank you for all of the attendees for joining today's session. We really hope that you found something interesting, found something new, and no matter at what stage of the journey you are with your supply diversity and inclusion, we hope that you've maybe got some inspiration today to take you to that next step. Huge thank you to WEConnect, Michael and his team, and in particular Patricia, who's been supporting as well with the delivery of the event. As you've probably gathered, if there's anything you want to know more about supply chain diversity, you can reach out to WEConnect directly, or you can contact myself, and I'm happy to put you in touch. Again, huge thank you to the speakers today and the panelists, Diana, Peter, and Rohit. Really great to hear your perspectives. So with that in mind, I think it's exactly 4:30. I can't believe we've actually perfectly to the minute stuck to time. We hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoons and evenings, and for all those colleagues that are located in the region, a blessed Eid to you all, and hope you enjoy a peaceful time over the long weekend. So with that, thank you once again, and wishing everyone all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.